Hi, I'm Warren Sprouse. This is the Bible Forum. We're here every Sunday night from 8 until 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we're here just for you. Tonight, we're talking about the phenomena that is Donald Trump. What makes this unlikely blowhard so popular? Everybody has reasons for loving or hating Donald Trump. For political establishment, Trump is the end of the status quo, the end of the old methods of not just getting things done in Washington, but winning votes to stay there. To activist liberals, Trump is anathema to their utopian, politically correct world and everything they stand for. They hate him, and he hates them back. For conservatives, they're as divided as they've ever been, or at least since the Goldwater days. Anybody remember 1964? To those who remain anti-Trump, the never Trump crowd, he represents nothing less than a complete abandonment of their principles and the values they consider integral to the fabric of America. To them, a vote for Trump is a vote against civility, decency, and everything they hold dear. To those who support Trump, they see a different, even unique way of accomplishing conservative goals, meaning to actually conserve what made America great. Doing that means abandoning classic conservatism. Why? Because these principles don't personally affect the average American voter. So the goal is to emphasize what people are feeling, what people are experiencing, where they live today, not where they were living in 1926. This apparently means becoming a populist. Immigration, stagnant wages, creative economics, bread and circuses. 25% of federal prisons are filled with illegal aliens. We know about the high-profile cases like the tragic murder of Kate Stenley, often thanks to Donald Trump. But actual figures for illegal alien crime are hard to find because, as a 2015 FoxNews.com story laments, quote, the government agencies that crunch crime numbers are utterly unable or unwilling to pinpoint for the public how many illegal immigrants are arrested within U.S. borders each year. Additionally, according to the Heritage Foundation, American taxpayers are on the hook to the tune of almost $20,000 for every low-skilled immigrant household which pays roughly $10,000 in taxes while using $30,000 in government services. In fact, 57% of all immigrant households with children use at least one welfare program. 22 million Americans are currently looking for full-time work, while at least 8 million full-time jobs are held by illegal immigrants. But our elites tell us we must bring in more, and in ever-increasing numbers, while ordinary Americans wonder why. And these are the ones who side with Donald Trump. A second major issue here is a policy position known as anti-establishment. Trade, conventional wisdom perpetrated by the likes of Cato Institute and others is that free trade is its own reward. Any effort to level the trade imbalances is mercantile heresy. China? Level the playing field? Saudis? Level the playing field? The losers are always the same. Middle America. Average Americans haven't seen a raise in real wages in 40 years. And it is amazing. The Donald seems to have taken a position on every side of most issues at one time or another, except this one. Trump has been remarkably consistent on trade. Foreign policy? Trump seems to stand with ordinary Americans on this one. Why are we doing the heavy lifting for a disconnected and crumbling Europe? Or toppling Arab dictators only to replace them with other dictators? The elites in this country would have us involved, read paying for, every firestorm and political problem in every country of the world. For what? Well, for peace, they say. It's our moral responsibility. We are a prosperous nation. It's leadership, they say. But what do Americans think? You know, the people those folks took an oath to serve and to protect. Apparently, Donald wants to put Americans first, regardless of what else he may say. As contradictory as his statements may sound, that's the message that's getting through. And ordinary middle-class America needs to hear that. Populism? Populism is resonating in Europe and in America. And this precisely is why those who support it must be trashed. In the end, however, as retiring Lieutenant Governor Ron Ramsey said in Tennessee, it matters who governs. Ramsey's the architect of Tennessee's massive shift from dominant Democrat to overwhelming conservative Republican government. And according to him, you have to win it to be in it. Anybody remember Ronald Reagan? The conservative electorate has shifted to populism by default. Why? Because they actually care about things that matter to ordinary Americans. And our professional politicians apparently do not. A new national survey among theologically conservative Protestant pastors suggests that Mr. Trump may be counting on assistance that's not likely to materialize. The survey conducted by the American Culture and Faith Institute found that conservative pastors are likely to personally support the presumptive GOP candidate, but unlikely to call their churches to participate in a meaningful way in this 2016 election process. There are other surveys that indicate evangelicals are not voting this time at all. It's hard to knowingly vote for someone you understand represents everything you are against. It's why so many Bible Christians are having a hard time voting Democrat. By a 2-to-1 margin, the conservative pastors interviewed felt that Mr. Trump is likely to defeat the presumptive Democrat candidate, Hillary Clinton, 44% to 22%. As for their personal preference, conservative pastors prefer Mr. Trump over Mrs. Clinton 6-to-1. But they have a hard time being enthusiastic about anybody. The bottom line is that there was not a single activity in which a greater number of conservative pastors planned to engage during this major election year as compared to their limited levels of participation during the last midterm election. Fewer pastors plan to encourage their members to vote. A significant percentage won't be voting themselves. Fewer churches plan to distribute voter guides, and fewer still will be inviting candidates to speak. The survey results were deemed, quote, nothing less than astounding, end of quote, by researcher George Barna, who directed the survey for the American Culture and Faith Institute. Asked why he believes this is happening, Barna pointed to comments made by evangelist Franklin Graham at New York event prior to Mr. Trump's appearance on stage, where Graham said, quote, it seems that many pastors do not want to be judged for supporting a candidate who is morally imperfect. The message that conservative pastors are sending to congregants is their faith should have no influence on this election, and therefore they should be passive bystanders while people with opposing worldviews and values make critical governance choices for Christians. What are you going to do? How are you going to solve this issue? To vote for a man who claims to be a Christian but gives no evidence that he is. To vote for a man who has no experience whatsoever in politics, has no political base, meaning he has nobody that owes him anything people that he's used to working with in Congress or around, a man whose temperament is such that he's liable to say anything, he's liable to do anything, a man who will probably use his business acumen on the country. And while some of that sounds like it's wonderful, that's what we need, it's a breath of fresh air, it's also a recipe for chaos. Let me encourage you, if you're a Christian, if you're a serious Christian, you really care about what God says and what the Bible's all about, you need to pray about this thing seriously. We may, as a country, have reached a point of no return. This election may actually be a pivotal point in America's life, sending us off on an entirely different trajectory. Not a biblical one. Not a trajectory that is rooted in the principles upon which this country was founded, but rather rooted on principles that no concerned, educated, informed Christian can possibly support. And it may be the Christian community is going to get out of politics altogether. In the last 30 years, we have seen the Christian community embrace politics, get involved in politics. There were churches and church groups that were encouraging this on every level. It's an old, tired, failing program called evangelicalism. New evangelicalism, where you get involved in the political process that you might be able to change it. And all it did was to chew up and spit out the Christians who have been trying to make a difference. The difference, my friend, is in prayer. If you can find a way in good conscience to vote, you should. If you can't, you need to pray. Because in the end, the prayer is far more important than any vote. And this one's going to be pivotal.